Thank you, Dave, and welcome to this beautiful and historic hall. And many of your sons and daughters would have started their orientation program here last Monday, and we hope that most of them will pass across this platform in a few years to receive a degree at a graduation. I'd like to welcome also all those rural, interstate, international parents who are watching this on a podcast. Welcome to you too. Congratulations too on having a child who got in here. The mean ATAR for entering the University of Adelaide this year was 92.3, an all-time record for us. 80% of all those admitted scored 80 or above. So we're always blessed in this university with bright students, but this is actually the brightest first year on a record. So congratulations. That said, if the past data proves to be correct, 14% of those we have admitted will not graduate. That means 1 in every 7. Most of those who drop out will do so this year, a great clutch of them in the first 6 weeks. The rest will then slowly fade away through leaves of absence and poor progress until you reach the 10-year mark and they haven't finished. Even for a part-time student, we regard 10 years of not completing as the definition of dropping out. Now, many universities, it's far worse than that, over 25% of students in many Australian universities, but we would like to do better than 14%, and that's one of the reasons we're here today. I want to share with you some of the reasons students do drop out and also what you can do about it. I'm sorry to focus on lack of success, but I suspect for some of you this will become a concern. First of all, I should say that university isn't for everyone, and those who drop out, sometimes it's the best thing for them. You don't really need a university degree to succeed in all walks of life. But in my experience, most of those who drop out do so for unnecessary cause. First of all, there's those who just never make the adjustment, and it is a big adjustment coming from school to university. The bell doesn't ring at the end of the period. Nobody tells you where to be next or when to be there. The students suddenly have to develop a great deal of self-reliance and organisation. They need to run their own schedule. In some of the classes they're in, roles are not kept. Many classes, in fact. No one will even notice if they're not there. So they need a new mindset. They need new self-discipline. They need to get better at communication with staff of all ages as well as other students. They need to get used to working in small groups, which is a bit of a feature of things here. They need to start thinking independently. Some of them drop out because they were getting into trouble and simply never asked for help. Extraordinary the number of students I see towards the end of the first year who are headed for near certain failure and who had never sat down one-to-one with a lecturer or tutor to discuss the problem. Almost all our first year staff spend some part of each week talking one-to-one to students, and really, if you suspect that's what's happening, you should ask them, have they asked for help? Have they talked to anybody? But all this, is particularly difficult because certainly if you're like me, once your teenager reaches a certain age, there's not much you hear from them. I've got 2 boys at university, one who goes around the house with earphones permanently fixed to his head and never communicates with anyone at all. The other one, on the contrary, the merest piece of anxiety or worry is played out endlessly with his mother. Sometimes we wish he'd put the headphones on. But You know, I suspect there's people in this room who already feel they don't have much communication left. Not a good prospect. The other problem is that there often isn't or cannot be any communication with the university. This is probably the first important thing in your child's life that they've signed up for, where you didn't have to sign the form, because the relationship here is not with the parent as it is at school. The relationship is with the student. That's as it should be, because although they mightn't be quite 18 yet, for most of the time they'll be with us, they are legally adults. We are bound by a series of privacy rules that actually prevent us sharing with anyone other than the student details of their progress or their results. So, doesn't sound good. No communication with us, no communication with your children either. Is this the way it should be? I have to say yes, it is, because, you know, this is part of their growing up. You need to give them space to work it out for themselves. Some of them are going to make mistakes. Some of them aren't going to be in the right place for class at the right time. Some of them are going to fail things, but they've got to work this out for themselves. There's a huge act of letting go in being a university parent. Letting go. The time has come. So what can you do? Well, probably the most important thing you can do from here on in is to ask questions. Not bear down on them, but ask questions. And one of them, as I just said, is if you sense there's a problem, have they talked to anyone? Actually, here's a question you can ask when you go home tonight, because tomorrow, for most of them, is the first day of classes. Do you know where your class is? We've just had the orientation program, and our estimate is about 2,500 students attended. Problem is, we admitted nearly 6,000. So there's quite a number who just weren't here this week. And turning up at 3 minutes to 9 tomorrow for a 9 o'clock class on a campus of 25,000 people that's as big and complicated as this one is a retrograde step, ladies and gentlemen. So go home tonight and say, do you know where your classes are tomorrow? If not, let's get out the map, the campus map, and work it out, rather than spending the first half of the first class trying to find where it is. Sometimes the problems that befall them are not within the class. First year is a notorious time for falling in love, and then falling out of love, and then falling back in again. And you know, there's nothing quite like disappointments of the heart to totally destabilise a student's work in first year university. There's also, and I don't have to tell you, an array of health and other issues that can go with such messy enterprises. Again, you need to ask them some questions if you think this is at play. Have they been to counselling? Have they been to our health service, our welfare service? Nothing to stop you looking up our website to see the services that are available. Sometimes the students don't do this themselves. So look it up. You'll soon see what the questions are you need to ask. But we have a whole lot of support outside the class for students as we do inside. If there is that kind of problem, they should get themselves to counselling, to our health service, to welfare, to the essay writing service, or to the disability support unit if they have a disability, and so on. Another problem, probably more important than falling in love, is for them to make some friends, because the friends they make here in their class are quite often going to be their professional colleagues for the rest of their life. And one of the great things you get from a campus education is coming away with a professional network. It's important they make friends. And if you sense they're not, again, there's some questions you can ask. Have they thought about joining a club, for example? We have over 100 sporting and social clubs here of various kinds, ranging from the Chocolate Eaters Society through to a series of extreme sports, gliding, water skiing, rock climbing and so on. There's something for them there. So really see if they've thought about maybe joining a club. Are they spending time in Hub Central? This fabulous student facility we have that's open 24/7 and which is a good place for their social life to flourish. So questions, ask questions. Look at our website and we'll help you work out what questions you should ask. Just a few other things you might think about and then I'll stop. No less than year 12, it's important they have a quiet place to study at home and minimum distraction from the family. So you might think about where at home they're studying, and if you're planning a family event or a family trip, it's not too big an ask to make sure it doesn't happen on the day of the final exam or 3 days before the major essay of the year is due in, you know. It's, you can help them with the home environment. Think about their internet access, a matter of enormous importance. The days of spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on textbooks have gone. The students will have been issued with a university student email address. You should ask them if they've activated it. Through their password, they link to My Uni, which is the intranet, where a great many of their course resources will be, including chat sites and other things that are critical to our teaching. They really do need to have good access to the internet. Think about the device they're using. And think about too, you know, they need to be able to download material to study it on the bus, on the train. You know, it's just, I mean, a few years ago, some courses here, you would have been spending $600 or $700 on texts. If you're spending that now on internet access, that is pretty much the equivalent these days. How much time should they be spending at home? My wife went absolutely spare when our two, on university days, got up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and seemed not to turn up at all. I wouldn't be too worried about that. There's a great deal now they can do online. A lot of our lectures, a lot of our content is available online, and indeed an increasing number of students prepare to absorb it online than dozing in the back of a lecture theatre. Of course, there's plenty of things they must be at. They need to come to labs, they need to come to tutorials, they need to come to compulsory seminars, but there are other things which they can do in bed these days at 10 o'clock at night. If that's what they choose to do, I wouldn't be that panicked if they're not here 9 to 5. How much should they be working? I often get asked, because when they get to first year university, mostly they start thinking about a part-time job. The typical full-time student here is working 12 to 15 hours a week, and in our experience that doesn't impact too much on their study, 12 to 15 hours a week. On the other hand, once you get beyond 20 hours a week, we see a number of unsatisfactory progress cases where the excuse is I'm working while enrolled full-time, and generally it's 20 hours a week and above. Good thing, I think, for them to have some work, but just try and encourage them to be sensible about the volume of it. Thing to think about, and that is a major present for them between now and the end. I've already said hopefully some people will rush out and buy them an iPhone for their next birthday after listening to what I've said already. But one thing we've been trying to change in this university is the approach to study abroad. On the staff, we believe it is increasingly important for university students to spend a semester or a period of time anyway during their course at a university overseas. It's a global world of employment now. We're preparing them to be global citizens,
that's pretty vital. Now, the University of Adelaide, when I arrived, had the worst study abroad record in Australia. 1% of the students went on study abroad. They love Adelaide so much you just can't get them to leave, apparently. 2.5 years later, that's at 6%. We'll be happy when it reaches 20%. But this is not as hard as it sounds. There's a large number of universities abroad with whom we have exchange agreements, so there's no fees. They can go there, they stay on HECS, the fees there are paid. There's a large number now of study abroad scholarships that will help them with an economy return airfare. But there are other costs as well. And you should think about, when they're in the third year maybe, of making them a gift that will help with study abroad. And it's probably, you know, the price of an international economy fare. If they get one of our study abroad scholarships, there are other expenses. But it would be great if we could stimulate more of them to think about that. The students who include that in their degree graduate very much richer in their experience.